Okay. Minimize this. Sorry, I'm having to duplicate the screen so I can draw on this one. You can see what I'm doing. So we are currently on there. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
You too.
To show you my love, I'm going to give you another assignment.
My favorite.
I choose you. So, hopefully I'll get the Ralph Wiggins joke. Okay, anyway. So a little bit of our schedule it's not off. These are kind of placeholders on the lecture stuff. But this is where I wanted to be. Again, it allowed us to postpone the body mechanics piece that we just finished. But I just wanted to look at it to kind of see where we're at. Today we're on the 14th. Spring break is almost exactly a month away. So we have a month for this project, roughly, because we're going to be turning it in last class before spring break. Another thing that happens on that day is, let me see if this actually is recording me correctly here. Another thing that happens on that day is the portfolio reviews. So we will be talking about those a little bit later, but in the portfolio reviews, on this day here, Tuesday, that date. The portfolio reviews are the midpoint portfolio reviews. A lot of people who are in here working right now from next class are going to be presenting for that. I'm going to strongly encourage you to go to that. In fact, I may even give you some extra credit. It'd be a very small amount of extra credit, but this is something you should want to do because you need to see what that looks like. If you get to your senior year and you go into portfolio never having seen a portfolio presentation here, my actual advice for you would be to drop the class and take it the next semester. You need to see these. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later. Not this class, the portfolio class, if you're at that point. So it is extremely important to see those. But more than anything, I just wanted to look at what our next little sprint looks like, right? So we're getting ready to start Project 2. Project 1 is in the can. You can still turn in revisions for that anytime you want to, and I'll hopefully give you some feedback on that. But you've got a pretty decent amount of it. You could already probably start working on some of those revisions now. So I wanted to spend today mainly Project 2 isn't one of those things where I say a sentence and you just start, right? It's a slow transition into how to start this. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We are right here on the 14th. Project 2 is a game animation set. So let's read it really quick and then I'll show you what that is. So while we're doing this, how many of you think you want to work in video games? How many of you do not want to work in video games? Just Parker. Okay. Get him! I do this project so you'll know for sure. Because I'm just making this statistic up because I like to do that. But I would estimate the number of jobs in games are somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 1 or 15 to 1 to the number of jobs in film. Right? The number of jobs in TV are a little higher, but you need to leave the country to work in those. And I give this assignment because a large number of people do this assignment and go, oh, hey, this is just like any other animation. Maybe I wouldn't hate this. And I'm like, yes, that is true. If you just put a webcam on an animator for games and a webcam on an animator for film and just watch them work for 8 hours in their office, it would look almost exactly the same. Right? There is no difference. The only difference in those two industries is one of them is hiring more people. Right? The type of work you get to work on or the type of work you get to say you worked on is different. But probably one of the biggest realizations that hit a lot of animators once they become professional is that getting to say you worked on a big project is less than like 0.1% of the job. The job is coming in and working at a place you're happy every day. Game studios are not always known for being great places to work, but there are a lot of good ones out there, and there's some bad ones out there. So I do this mainly to introduce you to games, even if you're not sure you like them, but also because even if you don't want to do games, you need to realize that the job that you do in a game industry is probably going to be the first job you would do in the film industry, which is create boring cycles, right? If you get hired at DreamWorks, they're going to be like, welcome to the team. We need 30 walk cycles. Here's a generic character. Make us 30 walk cycles for our simulation engine. Because there's a giant crowd singing, your character is going to be 2 pixels tall. Go. Right? Like, it is a very similar set of tasks. Idles, runs, attacks, jumps, all of these are just actions and ways of building on those body mechanic skills. So what we're going to get out of this is 4 very short physical animations, but we're going to implement it into a game engine so you can see how that actually works, so you can see the entire pipeline process. For film, you finish with your animation, put some lights in there, you hit render, you're done, right? And that means that's never going to change. No matter how many times you watch it, you're never going to be able to see it from the other side. You created a static piece of media, not static. No, give us it. But it's not interactive, right? You can never make it change, right? And that is the difference in that and games. One is a passive media, one is an interactive media, which means that in games, people can find the angle at which your animation looks bad. And so we have to kind of learn that. So, no, I'm not making this up bad. Film is good, but I would say that everybody gets into this because they're excited about their favorite show, whether it's Ruby or whether it's Pixar or whether it's Disney or whatever. And again, like from that talk from the beginning of the semester, the thing that keeps you going is if you like doing this, right? And so I want to introduce you to as many options as possible. So I'm not. Anyway, I have a long tangent about it, but I no joke. Like I give the tours for the students who come here. About 90% of them are like, the reason I want to do this is because I love this studio. It's called Pixar. Have you heard of it? Pixar. It's really cool, and I'm going to work there someday. And I'm like, maybe, but not in 4 years, right? It's a long trip. And I know lots of students who graduate and they send the resume to Pixar, or they send the resume to Disney or Ruby or Rooster Teeth, and they get a rejection letter, and then they're like, oh, crap. I didn't have a backup plan, right? And so I'm offering some backup plans here. The game industry is a little more, it's actually growing faster than film. Anyway, I get into a long talk about that. It's not necessarily that. A lot of people come out the other end of this, Parker, not liking the game project at all. And this is how you find that out, right? That you don't like this, and it helps you steer you in another direction. More often than not, though, I get a lot of people who come through it and say, oh, that wasn't as bad as I expected it to be, or that wasn't as, like, that was actually kind of neat. And I've had a lot of people who have completely changed the direction they decided to pursue as a career because they realized they kind of liked the process of creating these animations. They're short, like you can get probably like, in game animation, you can probably get 2 animations a day done, right? And so that's a lot of this gratification that you get that cycle or that feedback loop. So what we're going to do is we're going to make 4 animations that build a base animation set for an interactive character. So we got an idle, a run, an attack, which is a stationary punch or kick. So not like your character's not going to punch while they're running. They're going to stop and punch or stop and kick, right? And then a jump. Now your jump animation is actually going to be 3 separate animations because your character could jump off of this chair, or they could jump off of the top of a building. Those two jumps have different lengths, right? Like some of them, like if your character jumps off the top of a building, and then they land in midair, and then just stand there and they're idle while they fall, that looks weird. So really how you break up your animation for a jump in games is the push off the ground, and then the landing animation at the end. And in between that, you have this sort of floating cycle that could play infinitely, right? So if your character jumps off something really high, those are the three pieces we'll build. So really, total, we're going to be creating 3 finished animation pieces, but you're going to have 6 different exports or sequences that we're going to be working with, right? Okay, well, we'll get into this more later. The last element of this is I want to see it working in a game engine. Just like I want to see the animations rendered. It can look great in Maya, but you're not shipping Maya to a bunch of people playing a game, right? They can't go into Maya and see what you intended for it to look like. All they get is what was in the game, right? And so that is actually the media in which we're communicating, right? Just like people who, like if you do a painting, people can't see your sketch, right? For that painting, that's the same with this. Our communication media is the game, and it needs to function in there or it's not actually functioning, right? So our process is getting it into the game engine, because the game engine will give you information about how this looks that you can't get from Maya, right? Because you can interact with it. So I want to show you, I'll kind of finish reading this here. So what you're going to be turning in is a screen capture video of your animations in game. We'll use OBS, which is the thing I'm using to capture this video right now. And you're also going to turn in 2 play blasts or renders of each animation. But you're going to be primarily graded on how the animations look in game, right? Because that's the final output of it. So here's the problem. I say that all of these projects, except one, are eligible for 2D animation. And this is one I'm like, nah, we can't do this one in 2D. How many of you would be interested in doing this one in 2D? Okay. If the answer is no, then it's not something I need to worry about. I am open to trying that. I'm open to trying, if you're wanting to do it in 2D, I think this is the semester I'm going to consider it. I would have to change elements of the project for you. Because basically what we're going to create is, I'm going to show you how to do it in a 3D platformer, or a third-person 3D game, like a platformer game. But we could very easily do this in a 2D game engine as well, like Construct or Game Maker. Construct is like a free version of it out there on the internet. The reason I usually eliminate this one from the 2D animation part of it is because if you're really good at 2D animation, you could make all of your sprites for this in about 4 hours and be done. And that's not really the same amount of work as what a 3D animator would go through for this. So if you're wanting to do it in 2D, we can discuss sort of some specifics of that. Another option for this, though, is I'm also going to try, because I think it shouldn't be too hard to set this up, to do this as a 2D, like a 3D side scroller, right? So we can make all sorts of different games in Unreal. Usually I've always done it as a 3D like action adventure platformer where you're like floating back behind the character. I think that we could just as easily do it as a 2D side scroller, so if that's the method you want to go for, I'm willing to work with you on that. Recognize there may be some bugs in the process and it'll be a little slower for you, but you'll get to show your animation in that format if that would be what you'd rather do. So a 3D side scroller, like, was Trine 3D?
It was like 2.5.
2.5, yeah, a lot of the background was, but I think the characters were 3D.
Yeah, it was like on my axis.
Yeah, so basically you can be able to just see like a side scroller version of it. I think that would be kind of neat to be able to see some of your animations that way, if that's a way you would want to go with it. Keep in mind, I've not taught it that way before, so it'll be a little bit of a learning experience for me as well to get that in place. I'd actually really kind of be interested if somebody wants to try that, to work with you on it and get that going. So, project is due March 7th, basically the day before spring break. A quick note on that, the day before spring break, you can turn it in on that day, recognizing that you still need to make some changes to it. The reason I'm not going to have it due the day after spring break is I've done that before. I like it in principle, and this idea that I'm saying, for those of you who are not doing something on spring break, you can keep working all that week. In practice, it always backfires. I always get weaker projects when I do that, because most people are like, I'm really busy, I'm really busy, I'm really busy. I'll work on it during spring break. And then spring break gets here and you're like, what was I supposed to do again? And then I get something that's like half finished at the end of spring break. Right? So instead, we're just going to push ourselves to get this done before spring break. And then if you have plans on revising it during spring break, that's cool. But the critique and I'll be doing the grading over spring break. You would just be turning in a revision to this project later. I think that'll also help with momentum for project 3, because then we can hit the ground running on week 10 when we come back from spring break, because it's always kind of hard to get that energy back. Okay, where am I? How did I do this? That's the wrong class. So the other thing I want to look at really quick is the rubric before we look at the actual file. Again, all the classes. Why can't I talk today? All of the projects in this class are graded on a 5 criteria rubric that have 5 points each. Right? For this one, you get 1 criteria for each of the animations and 1 for your implementation into Unreal. I recognize that that's not an animation, and this class is called character animation. But again, it's part of the staging of this, because it's getting it into the way the audience will view it. And so it's actually an important step. If you can do that well, that will actually make your demo reel kind of stand out if you apply to a game studio. If for no other reason, then they see that you have double-clicked on Unreal and opened it once, right? And that's sometimes something a lot of students haven't done in animation. All right, so what are we making? What is this really going to look like? I've downloaded from my site a previous one that I made. I hope this captures in the video. I think it will. So this is kind of what you'll have. We have some characters. This is one of the ones that I provide for you. We can use a handful of different characters. Only certain types of rigs will go into the Unreal Engine. So you'll see when we open this up, he's just kind of standing there, but he's not dead, right? He's got a little bit of motion on him, just kind of idling. That's what this is called. It's an idle. I think for this character, it was about a 100-frame animation where he just kind of stays alive, right? Because otherwise, it will feel like you hit pause in the game if the character just completely stops. This is an interesting dance that you have to do between making this motion too much and making it not enough. And so this is one that it's kind of important too, because this is an animation that your player will see a lot, right? If they stop to think about what they're going to do next, they're just going to be staring at this idol. The really cool animations, they may not see that often. And so it's that is something you kind of have to weigh in game animations too, is even though this idle animation is not very glamorous, the animators or the player stares at it for a long time, so it has to be good. This is also a really good practice in creating a strong character pose. So we're going to have little mini, it's not really milestones, but little mini targets I need you to hit so we can kind of follow along together with this. What we're going to be aiming for next class is a mocked up version of each of these animations. And really for this one, all you would need is your idle pose, right? You need your character in an idle pose. You can do a couple of them so it looks bad or whatever. We just need a little bit of motion on it. So let's go ahead and see what happens from here. from here, if I hit my W keys or my arrow keys, I can make my character run around. So I'm just moving my mouse to look, and if I hit W, he'll run in the direction that I'm looking, right? If I hit backward, he'll run toward me, so we can see it at a different angle, sideways, right? And I can do, it's WASD is what I'm using to run. And so you can kind of see him running from some different angles here, just to get an idea of what we're going for. If I hit the space bar at any point, he'll jump. So again, you're seeing what I was talking about. Like, I have to have the animation where he pushes off the ground. I have to have the animation where he's up in the air. And then I have to have the animation where he hits the ground. The animation of him pushing off and the animation of him hitting are really short. Like, sometimes they're only like maybe 4 frames long, right? Sometimes maybe 5 or 6. The idle is about 30 frames long, and he's just hovering there, right? It's a cycling animation. And the reason that's important is because he can jump off of something higher, right? I'm not actually good at this. I can have him jump off of this too, and he'll be in the air longer. What the engine does is it looks for the moment you tap the space bar, and then it quickly plays the get him up in the air animation. I call it the up animation. And then, as long as the character is not touching the ground, it plays the idle animation, right? But the engine can tell when your character is headed toward a target, right? And so what it tells is, as you're getting closer to that ground, like let's say an eighth of a second before you hit the ground, start playing the land animation. And so what will happen is it'll transition from your idle floating animation to hitting the ground where you go straight and kind of absorbs that way. Right? So it's going to play those 3, and we have to kind of do some light, it's not scripting, but some light node connecting in here to make those 3 animations function correctly. So that's what a lot of the Unreal work is going to be, is connecting those things. The last animation, I have just tied to the mouse click. So whenever I click my mouse, he punches, okay? And so that's cool. It can be like, I'm running around, then I punch, right? The reason I want to show you a way in which this is broken, is if as I'm running, I hit E, or I hit the mouse button to punch, his feet slide, right? To make him punch while he's running requires some additional scripting, and we can do that. I don't really want to get into it. Really what that entails is blending 2 animations together, where the top half of your character is playing the punch animation, and the bottom half of your character is playing the run animation. That's really neat when you can make it work. I really would rather not to focus on that, because what you're going to be showing in your demo reel is not going to be interactive. It's going to be passive. People can just watch it. So you can just choose to not show them the bad parts, right? Like you'd be working with an animation programmer in a game industry that would help you fix that. And so you're going to just kind of avoid showing that. We're just going to create something that looks good in what you capture. Charge it?
I was just going to say, like, if we get closer to the end of the project, we're willing to do that.
Oh yeah, if it's something you're wanting to tackle, go for it.
Okay.
In fact, if you really start liking the Unreal parts of it, that is an element of a technical animator in games, and that's a position that's sometimes a little harder to fill than animator. If you post an animator position, you get a flood of demo reels. If you post a technical animator position, you get fewer demo reels, and so yours sometimes can stand out above than that. One of our, I guess he was more of a rigging artist. Josh Roberts actually just got hired at Giant Squid Studios, and it was like 3 months later, the game they were working on was on the cover of Game Informer. Like it was like, I mean, I actually took a picture of it. His picture was in like this little like thing in the bottom there. So like, it's one of the ones that like a lot of people will shy away from. So if you're loving the Unreal part, like being able to show both of those skills combined is nice. Like a lot of studios value that. So the last thing we're going to do with this is we have all the animations, right? We have our idle, we have our run, we have our jump, we have our punch. We're going to make our punch mean something. Like whenever you punch, an object in the scene. Not all of them, like this wall is not interactive, but like some of these things here, whenever you punch them, they will react to it. Now the reason I like doing that is mainly so I can just play with these dominoes. Like this is a lot of fun, really. Woo! No, actually the reason is because the result looks good, right? If you're showing your animation like that, like you can tell that looks pretty okay, right? But if you're showing your animation like this, you get a response from your action. You can tell that it actually worked, right? And that actually makes your animations look a little bit better. Let me try to get them over here close enough to see it. So like it actually adds a little weight to that punch. Instead of him just punching midair, seeing that reaction to it adds a little weight to the animation. And so I think it's a little bit of a better way to show it. So any questions about this so far? I know I'm throwing a lot of information, and a lot of information that I'm throwing out there, you're probably like, I don't know how to do that. And that's okay. That's why you're in college. I'm going to teach it. Probably the last question you may have on this is, like, what characters can you use, right? And the answer to that is, let me put it this way. I will provide 8 characters that I know work for this project, right? If you don't like any of those, we can try to find other characters that will work, but I can't promise you they will. So we need to do some extensive testing with them before you start doing a ton of animation with them, right? So some of the Truong rigs will work. I've seen people get them in there. Some of them don't. The one I know that doesn't is the Psylocke character. I know she doesn't. There's also another one that Catherine Ross tried to use. It's like this monster-looking creature that has all these spikes on his back. It's a biped, but he has like all these spikes on him. So here's the trick to game animation. A rig will only import into a game engine if it is a single hierarchy that is skinned to the objects, right? So how many of you are in technical direction or have taken technical direction? So when you create a joint, even if you're not, you kind of saw this in principles of animation. You created a sequence of joints, right? And then you skinned a mesh to those joints for our walk cycle on that last animation. That is what Unreal recognizes as an animated object. If you just constrain or parented an object to a skeleton, Unreal doesn't recognize that. It would just not bring in the mesh. Right? It will only bring in the skeleton and the mesh that it is driving. If there's a break in that hierarchy chain, let's say the joints aren't parented underneath each other, instead you do a parent constraint from the neck to the face, or from the head to the face, then that face is not in the same hierarchy chain. Unreal doesn't know what to do with it, so it just takes all of the vertices from the face and moves them to 0, 0, 0. So your character will not have a face, it'll just have a spike that goes all the way through its body and is on the ground. Right? You probably have seen some issues in games before. There's all these, I remember when Fallout 4 came out, I think it was New Vegas. There were all of these clips of like the characters, like one of the characters you talk to, and their face would just like do this like crazy thing and move all around. And it's something like that. There's some issues going on like that. So there is a little bit of like, if you don't like the 8 characters I'm going to show you, is it 8 or is it 7? If you don't like those characters, you are welcome to explore some of those other options. I would just get on that pretty early because we're going to try to have something to start working with next class period. So let's look at the characters really quick and talk about what you're going to be doing. So the characters can be found in the DIGM classes folder under Greg, and then character animation, resources, there's these game rigs right there. I'm just going to copy that entire folder to my desktop. Okay. And open up Maya so we can be working on this. So there are two different sets of rigs here. I've tried this multiple times. The first time I used the Autodesk character generator. So Autodesk has this thing you can use that will generate, it's kind of like a character builder. Like you can do some sliders, make their head a little bit bigger, make their muscles bigger, make them skinnier, fatter, whatever. And so for those, I made a couple of characters that you could use. And that's what's in these game characters folder. So these are going to look a little bit more realistic than the others. But they're not great. Like they're okay, but they're not great. Like this is apparently the only render I have. I have two different versions of this female character. One that's a little less like, a little more, like this has a very like specific style to it. She's a t-shirt and jeans. And this I just tried to go a little bit more neutral. So if you wanted to do something more like, was it Portal, where you're escaping from like a laboratory or something? Like, it could be something more general. You can also retexture these if you want. If you're like, oh no, I wanted to have a Black Sabbath T-shirt on instead of tie-dye or whatever. You're welcome to do that. But, huh?
Knock yourself out.
Yeah, just have fun with that. That's not really part of what's being graded. But a lot of people like to do some extra stuff there. These two are just some examples of, this was kind of I tried to go a little more neutral than what I had in this character, which seemed to have almost a built-in personality. And some people wanted a different personality, so I just tried to give them a more neutral character. To be able to see these, if we go under scenes, you'll see that's the tie-dye female, this is the other female. I have a male rig and a male bulky rig. So I'm going to go ahead and set my project really quickly. That folder, go away please. Please, there we go. File, set project, game characters. And then I can go to File, Open Scene, and if I click Male Rig, you'll see that this is the guy we're going to get. Why do I need the component editor? There we go. Why is this texture is not connecting up? Okay, so for some reason it's not finding his materials. That's cool, teachable moment. The way we can get to those, uncheck the model and select it. In the attribute editor, we just go find the material node, this body material node, and you'll see that it's looking for it. Oh, it's looking for it in the DIGM faculty folder instead of here. So I just need to click this and point it to the right direction. So if I click here, it should take me source images. Where are they? Oh. Apparently there's two different source images folder. It's this one. So male casual color, and once I click that, usually it finds the rest of the materials too. This is the Autodesk character generator. I don't know what these symbols are supposed to. It feels like they were trying to design a Gap T-shirt from like 1995. So feel free to make that less ugly. So this is the same character. Some of you have used some of these characters before. It's very similar to the Binbot rig. So we have FK spine, back to object, an FK spine, FK head, right? The foot controls all have these channels on them that you can use to raise the toes or whatever. We got these knee aim controls. This is the direction the knee will point. And so yeah, there's a lot of different stuff on here. The thing that a lot of people miss, selecting these controls here for the fingers, those just rotate that first knuckle. This middle joint and end joint rotate the second two. So So you can kind of work with this. I don't think there's any eye controls or face controls, so he's always just looking forward. The other character is a bulky character. I tried to make some character that was a little bit more stylized in this, in the character generator to see what I could get out of it. This was about the closest I could come up with. So if you're wanting something that's heavier, and you've already seen him, he's the one I had running around, you can do that. Now, a lot of people wanted a character that was just like a mannequin character. So another year later, I created another set of rigs that you can use. We go File, Set Project, and I'm going to go to the Body Mechanics rigs and set this. These are kind of, there's a whole bunch of different body mechanics rigs out there, and I kind of modeled these based off of those. So I'll just go ahead and open up, I like curvy female. These characters. And so you'll see we get this, show none. And it's the same rig again. These characters just don't have any facial features or anything like that. And it's very easy to change the character if you wanted to select this mesh and make all of these characters a different color. Wait. Does not seem to be working. Is that not my material? Okay. I'll figure that out if you decide you want to change it. Oh, is it the subsurface color? Oh, really? I didn't realize that's why that was doing that. So we can make her a completely different color if you want to. The materials are going to export out, and we can actually do some material work in Unreal too if we want to. Or if you want to try to do some textures on this, you're welcome to. But none of that again is necessary. So this whole set of body mechanics rigs, if you go to the images folder, no, wrong one. Images folder. I have some, I call it the family photo. So this is what those characters look like. I tried to get both a sort of a thin isn't the right word, but just like a average body weight or healthy body weight, I guess is the. That's not right either. What is the word? Because they're not skinny, they're like fit. I don't know if they're necessarily whatever. Sort of some neutral characters and some characters that add a little bit more weight on it, right? So a bulkier male, a curvier female. The reason for that is because you're doing some animation that has game animation gives you the opportunity to build character into the way they move, and you can make your decision on that, right? Is excuse me, is the bulky guy like super like tough like macho guy, or you can play up on that. Is he more like nervous and like so I think you can use these body types to add to that, but it also adds to the weight of the character. So if your character is one of the bigger characters, how they hit the ground is different. And I get very frustrated because the video reference that I shoot of myself only applies to characters that are built similarly to me. So I tried to give you some characters to take from that you can get closer to. Yes?
How stylized do you know this feel like? Does the punch can just be like really gooey good?
You can recognize it has to communicate, right? In the punch and the kick, I had some people who wanted to just take that. I named it attack to give you some options. I had people who decided to do a headbutt.
Yeah.
Was that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you fought with it though. Like that was like it's very easy to tell it's a punch when your arm is out, right? And so I've had some other people who have tried to do like other dynamic attacks. It still has to be clear, right? So like that is the hard part with it. And I'll actually talk about that in just a few minutes. Like the way we make some of those things clear is by they're going to happen really quick. making them indistinguishable from what you're wanting it to feel like, right? So if the attack is like this, like, don't hit me, not in the face, right? Like, that's not necessarily going to read that clearly right off the bat, especially from behind the character. So yeah, but you can make some decisions. I would say we're going to run some of those decisions by me just to make sure. Like, it's better to get feedback on this early, right? Okay, so if you're not a fan of any of these characters, that's okay. My feelings aren't hurt, even though I worked for hours and hours on them. But you only. So I'm just kidding.
I like your characters,
Well, thanks, Bart. Actually, I still see some stuff in this, like, I think silhouette-wise. I actually am happy with all of them except for the non-bulky male, like the neutral male. To me, he doesn't have as interesting of a silhouette, primarily in his arms and legs, as the other characters do. So I think both of the female characters, though, I enjoy them a lot. I think they're good. They're fun characters. Okay. So how in the world do we even start? Like, where do we start on this, right? So I think to start, we need to kind of understand what the game engine is going to do with your animations, right? So a player can take your character anywhere you want them, that they want to take it, right? And I can't animate every one of those situations. So we have to make animations that can be dynamically edited in real time. Or not edited, but dynamically triggered and manipulated in real time. So for example, if I needed my character to run forward, right? I guess I could do an animation of my character running forward, but then if I needed my character to run backward, I would have to, animate them turning around and then running backwards again, right? And eventually your animation list would be hundreds and hundreds of animations. I can't account for every situation, so instead what I make is an animation of the character running in place like they're running on a treadmill, right? And I let Unreal, or the game engine, move that character around wherever it wants to, right? So my run cycle is just going to be my character running in place. I'm going to import that into Unreal, and I'm going to set it up to where whenever I hit my arrows, it plays that running animation as if he's running on a treadmill, but it also just slides the entire character around. And when you get those two animations combined, it's going to feel like my character is running forward, and it's going to allow me to steer him wherever I want to, right? So keeping that in mind, Unreal is part of how this animation ends up actually playing back. So one of the first things we need to do is get something into Unreal. I know that sounds crazy because that's like saying the first thing we're going to do in this animation is render it, right? But what we're going to, the process for this is hard at the beginning. Once we get all of these animations in Unreal, or some super simplified version of all of these animations into Unreal and working, all I have to do is go back to Maya, improve the animation, and re-export them, open it back up in Unreal, and I can play it with the new animation. Your render time on this is going to be 0. Like, you are going to render this in real time, right? So what we're doing is we're prepping for the way that presents. So think of Unreal as your play blast, right? When you play blast something out to be able to see how this animation looks, instead of play blasting, we export, replace that in Unreal, and then look at it in Unreal. This is how every game production should work, because what the audience is actually going to see is the thing that is in Unreal. So your animation for the jump may look awesome in Maya, but if it's not working in Unreal, then we have to make the changes in Maya that make it communicate better in Unreal. So some of it is that the way it's triggering may not work right. And some of it may be that this is really like one of the frustrating things about being a game animator. You're going to polish your curves forever, and then you're going to export, and Unreal is going to create a keyframe on every frame of the animation for that curve. So you may have like 15 keyframes on that curve for a 100-frame animation. Or when we export it, it will create a keyframe on every frame of 100 frames, right? You have 100 keyframes. And then when you take it back into Unreal, it reduces keyframes it doesn't think are necessary. So all that work you did on the curves is still there in theory, but sometimes it like sands the sharpness off of it. It does that to make it more efficient, but sometimes it messes up your animation just a little bit. And like say 1 out of every 20 times, you're going to be like, oh, that doesn't look as good in here as it did in Maya. And again, like you can't say, I'll just ship my computer with the character in Maya to the player, right? They have to be able to see. They have to be able to see how it looks in Unreal. So the way you do that is you go back to Maya and you push it too big. That way, when it exports out, it looks correct in Unreal. So getting a functioning version of this in Unreal as early as possible is the key to making this project work. So I want to be able to do that next class period, which means you have to have some file to export by next class period. And it doesn't have to be the actual animations, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to show you how to set up creating some super simple animations that we can export. It's not going to look anything like your actions, right? So let's go through them really quick. Actually, I can probably make them in real time here, but I may not just for, maybe I will. Let's try that instead. That seems like fun. So let's start with this. I'm going to undo the red because that was too much. I'm just going to reopen her. Open scene, curvy female. So let's say I'm using the curvy female. There's a tool in Maya that you may not know about that's actually really useful in other situations as well. So I'm going to hit none, curves, polygons. So, to select all the curves, all of those curves are under this A tool set, purple all. See this? And so I can select all of the curves that way. How I usually structure this is maybe the first 100 frames or so, or maybe even the first 10 frames, however you want to do it. I don't have any animation on that. I'm just going to go ahead and select all the curves, and in her bind pose, I'm going to hit S. Okay? So now I have a keyframe that at any time, if I mess something up, I can get her back to this bind pose. Okay, it's actually kind of a nice, convenient thing because I can go back here, copy that, and paste it somewhere else, right? Now, for her first animation, I'm going to do it on frames 100 through maybe 200. Let's try that. So I'll go ahead and hit S on that. I will position her in something that is simple. Let's say this. Again, select everything. You can make a button if you want to. And hit S. I'll go out here to frames 200 and hit S again. So this section here, frames 100 to 200, is my idle animation. To actually be able to see some idle animation on here, I just need to put some motion on it. It can be whatever motion you want it to be. Like, again, this is a test file. Right? This is not going to really even turn into your final animation. So spend less than a minute on each of these, right? So like if you want to do something crazy like this, right? My idle animation is now her doing this. The only reason I did that, I mean, you can make something more subtle if you want to. The only reason I did that is because once I've exported this into Unreal, I want to be able to see if my idle animation is playing. And if she's just doing this over and over again, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's the idle, right? It could be something like you just have her nodding her head, Or you could actually spend a little bit of time or just like shift your hips back and forth or whatever you want to do. Just some motion that you can see. Now, your timeline is going to start getting really confusing because I'm going to go out here, give myself another 100 frame gap, right? So I'll go to, instead of frame 200, I'll go to frame 300. So let's just go ahead and extend out here to like 500, right? And so my second animation, my attack animation, I'm going to make it from frame 300 to say frame 330, right? And so I can go ahead and start from my idle pose again. So again, it's the way an attack works is from here to here. So your character, to trigger that attack, they're going to be in their idle pose. You're going to click the button, and it's going to play from the beginning pose of that idle pose, right, into a punch or kick or whatever, and then back to the idle pose, and then it's going to start playing the idle animation again. So you never feel like there was a change, right? So the first and last frame of your punch or your attack is going to be your idle pose, right? So like just to be able to see if this works, I'll do something like this, right? This to this. And then in the middle here, I'm going to do a very obvious punch, right? There we go. Unmistakable. So, what is my rotations on the world? There we go. And then if you want to, we can... So again, less than a minute on each of these animations. So my idle animation now is from that, or my punch animation now is from that to that to that. And if I played that, I'll be like, oh look, my punch worked, right? So in Unreal, I know. So again, like you should be spending, I'm not joking, spend less than a minute on each of these poses. If you're like, I've been on this pose for a minute and 15 seconds, it's time to move on. Like we're just getting a throwaway file we can export. And we're sort of establishing a timeline range of where all of these are going to live. But again, if you look at my timeline, it's kind of confusing, right? Like I got this this frame on 1, which is my idle pose. Frame 100 to 200, I'm sorry, my bind pose. Frame 100 to 200 is the idle, and then frames 300 to 330 is the punch. And sometimes an animation for a character like this will end up being like, you may have 17, 18, 50 animations. Battleborn had a huge list of animations because there was a run forward, run sideways, run backwards, run diagonally, run in a curve. Like there's a giant list. And for me, efficiency-wise, I kind of like working in a single file. In this project, it works best this way just because it saves you some time in exporting. You don't have to do this. You can do a different file for each of the animations if you want to. And a lot of times that's beneficial because if you accidentally delete a file, you didn't lose the entire character, right? And for other reasons too. But exporting is slower because you have to open up every one of those files and export them. So I want to show you how we can keep them all in this one file and still be able to export and keep track of this stuff cleanly. So again, I still have the other animations to do, but if I go to File, Game Exporter, this is a really handy tool. So the reason this is handy is because under animation clips here, I can start adding new clips that have names. So I can click here and say frame 1 to 1, well, I'll do 1 to 2, yeah. We'll call that bind pose, right? And then I can add another clip here and say idle, nope, LE, and that is frame 100 to 200. Can add another one here and say this is punch, and that is 300 to 330. Even if I haven't made the animation yet, I could go in here and say from frames, we'll call this run. We'll do that from frames 400 to, I'd say it's probably not going to be more than 20 frames long, 25, 22 maybe. So we'll say 420. So the cool thing about this is whenever I'm ready to export, this is my list of things I can export with one button click. I click a button, it exports all of those things, right? Which is really cool. Yeah, if I didn't want to export the bind pose, I just uncheck that. Now here's what's really cool though. You see this little play button over here? When I click this, watch what happens to my timeline. It just sets my timeline to the 100 to 200 range. And now all I'm watching is that, right? If I click the punch one, it sets it just to the punch range. So this is also kind of like a timeline organizer. Right? You can have multiple animations in here and organize them shot by shot. I can click it to run, nothing's there. And then this button right here, I think if I'm not mistaken, play blasts it. Yeah. So I can play blast my idle just by clicking that button. And now I kind of wish I wouldn't have clicked that button. I don't know what happened. Oh, well, maybe it didn't work. Maybe I have to click play first and then play blast it. Oh, well. Apparently that's not working right now. Yeah. So, I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of the animations really quickly. The run, to me, just to get an idea, I'll do a simple contact, or a simple up, a simple down for each leg. So I do get a kind of a run cycle, but it'll be very simple. So for my run animation, I can sequence it here. Stop. I'm going to move this off to the side. No. Oh yeah, forgot. Minimize that. So for my run animation, I'm going to start it in the passing pose. So the passing pose would look something like this. Now the reason I start in the passing pose is because the passing pose is also much closer to the idle, right? So Unreal is going to blend between these animations, and I don't want it to have to blend too much. So I got this as my first passing, right? So frame, I didn't want it on frame 114 or 414. I wanted it on frame 400. So I'll go ahead and go out here to 420 and set it again. That means on 410, I need the other version of this, which is really just zeroing this out. And if I set keys on all of those, yes. Right now, this is my run animation. You could use that, but to give yourself a little bit of a better idea, I would go ahead and put the up poses too. So you can do like this. And again, select all of it. And then here, So again, hopefully less than a minute on each pose. I'll go ahead and push all of this up just a little bit. And so now if I hit play in Unreal, I'm going to see this, which again, looks very bad, but gives me an idea, okay, my run animation is working, right? Now the last animation we need to create is the jump animation. But we're going to create that in 3 segments, okay? We're going to do that as the jump up, the jump idle, or some people call it, let's say jump idle, and then the jump down. So I'm going to do that all in one long range. I usually do, under the animation viewer here, we'll do, let's say 500 to 5, let's try 560, just so I have the whole range. And I'm going to name this jump all, and I'm not going to ever export that. I'm also never going to really export my bind pose. But what that'll do is that'll let me jump to the entire jump sequence, right? And then the ones I'm going to animate, I'll do a jump up, which would be 500 to about 505, maybe. It may be a little longer than that. Let's do 506 just in case. I'm going to hit add here, do jump idle, and that's going to be wherever this one ends, 506 to, let's say 5. So I want to give it enough time to cycle. So let's do about 30 frames. So I'll say 536. And then one more, I'll call this jump down. And that's needing to be 536 to, let's say, 5. It's going to be a little longer. We'll say 5. Let's do 45. And I'll also go ahead and change my jump all to 545. So now what I have is all these different sequences that don't have any animations in them yet. But if I do jump all, I can see the entire thing, right? And I can go ahead and start making the keys that I need. Now, here's one of the reasons that bind pose is handy. I can go back here now, and my key, she's at the end of that run cycle, right? So I can go here, grab all of these, right-click there, say copy. Or I could do this, let's do it from the idle instead. Right-click, copy. And then I'll go back to the beginning of this jump all sequence. Oh, that doesn't play blast it. That just resets your timeline so it doesn't start playing it. So in 500, paste, paste. And so now I have a paste of her idle, right? This is the pose the animation needs to end in. So I'll paste that at the end as well. However, for as much time as I've spent belaboring the idea of anticipation and all of that, that's not the pose this is going to start in. Right? We know that an animation, for you to jump, you have to anticipate down first, right? And then push up. However, in games, what you're trying to do is show a response to the player's action, right? And if you hit the space bar to make your character jump, and you have to wait half a second before that character comes off the ground, or worse, even a whole second, like that's going to be very frustrating as a player. You need a quick response to that. That's why that first animation is only 6 frames long. I want it to feel like as soon as I tap the space bar, my character pushes themselves off the ground. So what I'm going to do is instead of starting in my idle pose, I'm going to start in a down pose. I'm going to hit this, when I hit the space bar, it's immediately going to start the animation with the character crouching a little bit, right, to push off. So my animation for jump up, that section of the sequence, is not going to be here. It's going to be something a little more like this. Obviously, this is a bad pose, right? So let's do something like this, right? And the end of it is going to be the top of this jump, right? Now here's where this gets weird. Let me go ahead and set a keyframe on 506. We're going to animate our character jumping, like they're going to push themselves up, but we're not going to animate the character going up in the air. Why?
Because that would actually change location in the game engine, whereas the game engine is supposed to change that itself.
Yeah, the game engine is going to decide how high the character jumps. Because imagine a world where a mechanics designer or one of the designers comes back and says, oh, we decided to change the height of all the platforms, so the character has to jump another foot high for every jump. And you're like, we've already animated 50 characters. Also, what if they're like, oh, we have this one mechanic that depending on how tired the character is, the character can jump different heights, right? If your character eats this one mushroom, they can jump higher, right? All of that stuff needs to be able to be controlled dynamically. If they hit a spring, it launches them way up in the air, right? And you don't want to have to run or create a different animation for each of those. So what our character is going to do is they're going to get up in the air. So let's say let's try safe by frame 502. Set a keyframe on all of that. Our character is going to push off of the ground. Maybe something like this. This. Again, you're going to want to make these poses way better than what I'm doing here. So something like this, maybe. Actually, no. At this point, you're not going to make these poses way better. At this point, you're going to make them bad and recognize that in the future, you're going to make these way better. So this is where she pushes off the ground, right? This is how she launches herself up in the air. We'll probably even stretch this a little further and roll up on this toe. So this is her jump, and what you'll see is it goes from this to this, right? And then you're going to end this animation with her up in the air. But we're not going to take her that far up in the air. Really, we're just going to do this. So that means this animation looks like this. Now, from 506, if we look at this again, from 506 to 536 is this cycling animation of her being up in the air. So again, if I go over here, grab all these controls, that means the first and last frame of this have to be exactly the same. So 506, I'll just middle click, drag out here, 536. So this stays the same. To make sure we have a little bit of idling going on in here, maybe I'll do something like this. To make it clear to the player, maybe something like this. And so that means this animation is going to do this. Again, I'm giving myself a clue in Unreal that this animation is triggering, right? This is not what it would look like in the real animation. If you want to have her head spin around or whatever, you can do that. Now the down animation, the jump down animation, is going to start at the end pose of this and transition back into my character on the ground again. I see a problem here. I moved the character a little too far forward. So even though I'm in early stages of this, I can still go back. I can still go to my graph editor whenever I want to and use that to make quick changes. And so that's my translate Z, I think, on those two things. So I could just go in here really quickly, find my translate Z curve on those three things. And then just move those back a little bit. So she doesn't go quite so far forward. See if that still works. Yeah, it feels a little bit better. So now if I go see jump all, you'll see that this is what this looks like. Now, it's important to recognize what's going to happen is when I hit jump in Unreal, Unreal is going to move the whole character up and down as high as I want it to, right? And so to sort of simulate what that might look like, it might look something like, don't really worry about repeating any of this. It might look something more like, it'll look like this in the engine. So that's why we don't put that animation on it though, because Unreal is the one that's going to move it up and down. So let me go ahead and get rid of that. I just wanted to show you like that's what we're doing. Okay. Once I have that, next class period, what we're going to do is use this game exporter to export all of our animations and take them into Unreal and get them wired up. This is something you're going to follow along with, so I need you to bring in what I have here for your character next class period. Any questions on this?
Yes, later on, will we also be focusing on making the blueprints for these characters in our real engine for the animations?
Yeah. So basically, that's what we're going to be doing. Is there's a blueprint that there's already going to be some blueprints that we're going to be using. Those blueprints, we're going to kind of steal parts of them and rework them. So we're not going to be writing our own scripts, or we're not going to be making any blueprints from scratch. But we are going to be repurposing existing blueprints and sort of learning what they're doing to make them work. How many of you have never opened Unreal? Just curious. All right. It's going to be a fun day. Here's the thing. It's confusing because I usually don't teach that way. I'm not one of the, okay, everybody sit down and click the buttons I click and do it the way I'm doing it, right? This is one of those processes that I do have to teach that way. I also already have a video series that you should be able to watch through to learn that. So if you go to, here we go. You go to YouTube. Oh, look, there's a handy dandy button. If you go to YouTube, it's Greg Marlowe Learning. I think I've linked you to this already. If you go to my page, under playlists, there's one in here for game animation export and custom UE character, or UE4 character. The audio is not great on it, but I go through the entire process of exporting this character and taking it into Unreal, wiring it up. So if you wanted to like sort of read ahead, I guess is the way I was saying, you can go ahead and watch through these videos. In the near future, I plan on remaking these because these are kind of old and there's a couple of things that have changed. So I've shown you how to do the Unreal. I showed you how to export these one at a time because when I made this video, the game exporter didn't exist in Maya. The game exporter will make the export process easier, but it's still not a bad idea to just watch them and see how you can do it in the manual way if you have to as well. So if you want to read ahead a little bit on that, that's cool. What I would be doing today is picking out your character, thinking about what you want the personality to be. When in doubt, I would say I wouldn't go too far off, like out in left field on this one. Like, try to pick an archetypal character, like heroic or I don't know, like scared or yeah, like something that is going to be easy to communicate that, like ambivalent is not going to be easy to communicate with a character that has no face, right? Pick something that's going to be clear. You can always try some other stuff later, or we can make some changes to it later. What we're going to do is over the next few class periods after we get it in Unreal, I'm going to go into each of those animation sequences and show you how to make them better, right? How to really focus on them. The two that are going to be really interesting, I think, are going to be the run cycle animation, the three, I guess. The run cycle, the punch, and the idle. The jump animation is very frustrating because it's always going to look bad in Maya. Like, it's always going to look bad. If you're wanting to render these for your demo reel, you're pretty much just going to have to do a completely different jump, right? So those are that one's almost one to where the animation in Maya is like it's a really big back and forth between Unreal and Maya to make it look good in the game engine. So that's what a lot of the next few classes are going to be, is me sort of taking those three animations apart and showing you how to do them better. Interestingly, like some of that goes into the graph editor pretty heavily, and so I think I have that in about the right place now when we do a little graph editor in-class test. So it's going to be fun. You're going to enjoy it. Maybe. I don't know. Will they enjoy it, Parker? Will they enjoy it? The graph editor test? Yeah. Okay.
They got their news.
I liked it. I did it on paper one year, and people who were amazing at animation failed it. And it's because I think it's a really hard one to visualize. So it's fun. Huh?
Like asking people to write code.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, all right, y'all. Questions?
Which version of Unreal is so I need to know what I need.
I honestly don't know what we have here. I would recommend, if you can download what we have here at home, if you're wanting to work on this, do that. The way you find Unreal, if you're wanting to just start playing around and you've never opened it before, it's Epic Games Launcher. Yeah, it's probably going to ask you to update. I'm going to say sign in later. What do we get here? It's probably a good thing I'm testing this out right now. I have a feeling this could bite me later. Unreal Engine. Where is it at? Do we not have Unreal on here at all?
I think it's up in the top right.
Maybe I have to.
Click on the should let you see what version it is.
Which one? Here?
The arrow next to the sign in Unreal Engine preview normally will tell you what versions you have.
I bet it's going to make me sign in, isn't it? I don't remember what it is.
Okay.
4.19.1.
Yeah,
So 4.19.1 is probably what's on there. You may have to sign in for an account to be able to do this. I cannot remember. Let me look at my password.
Fun time.
Yeah. So apparently now Epic Games Launcher makes you sign in. So what is on these computers is 4.19.1. I don't know. We haven't updated these this semester, so there's a chance you can't even download that one anymore. So there's a couple of tricks to this. If you can actually install Unreal onto your portable hard drive and bring it into class and temporarily, while you're logged in, install it here and run it on a newer version. I've never really done that. Have you?
No. But you can still.
You have? Okay, cool. So we may be able to do that if you're wanting to work on a newer version from home. I don't think it's going to let us download it here. It takes a long time to download it. What are you going to say?
You can still download it back to 4.0. So,
Oh, can you?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you should be able to still download it's 4.19.1. The interesting thing is if you work on 4.19.2 at home and try to bring it in here and open it, probably not going to let you. So you need at least this version, or you need exactly this version. Interesting little factoid. That's called version lock. Because if you're in a studio, Unreal's updating every day. No, it's not every day, but they update really often, right? And that means to make sure everybody's on the same version, they just decide we're not going past this version. This is the version we're going to work with. Because an update sometimes messes stuff up, even though it fixes other things. It will mess up things in your game. So, so just be kind of careful with that if you're going to work on this at home. If you're curious about how we're going to do this, I'm going to go ahead and launch it here really quick. And just so you can start playing around in Unreal, for those of you who've never used it, takes it a couple minutes to load. But once it does, you'll get this. And these are our preset games that we can start with. We're going to start with a blueprint. And the one we're mainly going to be using is a third-person game. So if I click third person.
Would it be possible to do a third person in 2D? And then you draw the character from every angle? I mean, it would take a lot of work.
You could do it. I could say you could do it. You would have to basically have a plane that's playing the 2D image, and always pointing at your camera. And so what would happen is as you move your camera around, your 2D image would stay the same. Or if you didn't want it to perfectly aim at it, you could have some slightly perspective versions of the run and all that stuff. So yeah, I think you could do it. I think it would be way more work than. Maybe, I don't know. If you locked the 3D camera a little bit to where you couldn't tumble around your character, I think you could do it. So we can choose these presets and create one. And the two that I'm interested in trying is this third person. This is the one we've done and that the videos are about. But I'm pretty sure we could do something very similar with this side scroll. So if I click this and say, go ahead and make it, we'll call it Throw This Away Later. Great project. Throw this away later in the editor. Right? This is going to create all the assets you need for a game to function and a simple template. So here's our character. This is the character that Unreal starts this off with. What we're going to be doing is replacing this character with your character. And if we hit this play button at any point, you'll see that we have this playable character in game already. So what we're mocking this off of is what Unreal already has here, plus we're going to add a punch. If you want to see what those animations look like, if you click this button here, you can show and hide the source panels here. It's this third person, it's this mannequin here, and under character meshes, or if we wanted to go even under the animations, let's just go ahead and do the animations. I can double click on third person walk, and it brings up the walk animation. So you can see that there's a timeline in Unreal as well where you can drag it, right? And you can see the walk animation. So you can sort of base your walk animation off of some of this information. Not necessarily how to make yours look exactly like this, but stuff like the jump start. You can see what their jump start looks like. The jump loop. The jump loop actually has a hitch in it. I always think that's interesting. Like as your character's falling infinitely, it has a knee pop in it. And then jump end is that. They're idle. This. What's third person jump? That's apparently the same thing.
Or these are the default.
Yeah, this is the default for the third person character. So basically what we're going to do is take some of this information, we're going to take some of this guy's tech stuff that's happening under the hood, and we're going to rewire our character with it, okay? I'm doing that because, in all honesty, most of you, that's the extent that you will ever want to learn it. If some of you are really into this, though, there's some stuff out there on how to create this from scratch. We actually have a subscription to Gnomon, like Gnomon Workshops, I think it is, that I can get you the login for that. And there's some like create your own animation blueprints. There's also some stuff online for it. So there's that. Now, there's another way we could have done this, which I don't really want to do it this way. It feels kind of cheap. You can kind of download this mannequin rig and do your own animations and then just apply them to this rig. Unreal has its own auto rigging software that you can rig your own characters and then sort of do your animations on that and replace these characters with that character. So that's a little bit of a different workaround, but not necessarily as custom. So this is what, take some time and play around in here. See if you may like this more than you think, or you may already know you like it. You can drag objects in here. Moving around kind of works like Maya, and it kind of works like a game. Like I can just click my mouse and sort of slide around. But if you hold down Alt, you can also kind of use the Maya shortcut keys to get around in here as well. Right? And again, whenever you want to see it as a game, we hit play. I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to go ahead and don't save any of that. And I'm going to try launching the Unreal Engine thingy again. And just to see this, if you're curious or want to try this, new projects, side scroller, you can create this project as well. And I haven't dug into this enough, but I think that we could just do a slightly different version of the 3D one, and it would look like this. So you really only have your side-to-side motion, your jump, and so we could do it like this, and you'd have a little bit of a different effect if you wanted to try it like that. So this may give you the option to sort of show your animation from the side a little better if you're interested in it. So. All right. Any questions?
I just have a question about if you've seen like every before,
Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do that. So I'm going to actually sort of turn the rest of the class over to you at this point. You can use it for work time. You can use it to polish your revisions. You can use it to ask me questions. You can use it to get food. You can use it to Google all the new trailers that came out.
One Frozen 2 was released yesterday.
I heard about that. I haven't watched that yet. I also saw there's a movie about Tolkien that came out. Like I don't know, it's like a biopic or something. So, all right. The rest of the class is yours, and we will pick this up at the beginning of next class and get your stuff into the game. No. I was going to draw out those poses. And then I was like, you know what? I'll just do them in Unreal. Let's just see it. So, anytime.
So it's one of the runners. It's the specific grade. Seen some before. Because I was really, it just seems like going to be very deep, but it's like
What I would say, try.
Yeah.
Go down. I may be able to give you
It opened up as a hard and it was very complex. Yeah, for you also like, I might have them all the message to like the customers or something.
Yeah.
I walked over and I got a dog. One mom and a dog.
Yeah.
So a lot of times. I was like, I like it. Thank you. So here's the contestant is the thing we're going to export is all of that. So all of that is selected. I'm just going to try. What I do is do so all of the all
Yeah, that's fine. Sorry.
I just want to put some more words into it. So, while it's doing that, software package SPX review. It's a free thing from Autodesk.
Anytime I want.
Yeah. It's Star Wars. That tastes just like Star Wars. So this is just it's a neat little. That's the way I do it. So basically, what this lets you do is just review it at the end. It's work, we'll see the work, and we'll show you how to do that. Something like you're recording when I'm looking at it. All right.
Thanks, Greg.
Let me stop this video real quick because I'm still recording. Sorry.